Are you looking to play awesome PC games and not break the bank? Are you looking for a true next-gen gaming experience? I give you the £430 gaming PC, which plays everything I can throw at it on Ultra at 1080p at way over 30 FPS. Same can't be said for the X-Bone now, can it? This PC isn't the easiest to build in the world, but it does give you huge performance with very little outlay. The heart of the system is in an Intel Core i3-4130. This is a Haswell-based CPU that has 2 physical cores and hyper-threading, which gives you near quad-core performance. This little chip is clocked at 3.4 GHz, which is a nice speed considering you won't be able to overclock this as it's a locked CPU. This is all you need though to push modern games, and for some future games with some great single-threaded performance, and with those 2 cores and hyper-threading, and can deal with some great multi-threaded performance as well. We place this meaty little CPU into an MSI H87M-G43 M-ATX motherboard. This is a H87 motherboard, which means no overclocking on the motherboard side either. But this is fine as we're using a locked CPU. This board has some nice features like several USB 3 ports on the back, as well as a front header, as well as some nice other connectivity on the board, including 7.1 onboard audio. For storage, we're using a nice, simple, reliable and very well tested and regarded Western Digital 1TB Caviar Blue. This has more than enough performance for games, spinning at 7200 RPM, and will definitely load them faster than any console you own, as well as being able to hold an absolute ton of music, videos, and of course, games. The graphics powerhouse of this is a beastly R9 270X. This is where most of the budget has gone on this build. This features a 2 GB DDR5 and can be put into Crossfire later on. The version I have used was a Gigabyte Windforce card, but you can have your choice of many different coolers and overclocked versions, if your budget can stretch to it. Powering all of this is my trusty Corsair CX430 watt, 80 plus bronze power supply. I love this PSU and I've used it in tons of builds. It has never let me down and has more than enough power for this system. You do have to use the included Molex 6-pin power adapter for the GPU, but for the price you really cannot argue with this power supply. For the RAM, I personally used some Patriot Viper 3. This was 8GB 1600MHz RAM, but at the time of building this it was the cheapest and lowest latency 8GB stick of RAM. Because RAM prices are so ludicrously high and majorly in flux at the moment, the only option is to hunt for the cheapest 8GB 1600MHz set with a cache latency of around 9 or 10. In the past 3 weeks I've used about 4 different types of RAM just because they're changing so much. I housed all of this in a Fractal design Core 1000 USB 3. This is a tiny MATX case with barely enough room for it all, but for £30 it's literally just a house for this PC. It has front USB 3 and literally just enough room for everything. It just does what you need it to do. Now that's what's in this tiny little beast. Let's see how it went on in the games. This little computer really blew my mind when we went into the games. On Bioshock, I managed to get on Ultra on 1080p with an average frames of 70.94. The minimum only ever dropped down to 38.54, and the maximum was 163.17. This is extremely playable, you won't notice the dips, and it's just frankly fantastic for £430. Crysis 2, I managed to get Ultra and 1080p again. Average was 51, minimum was 39, and maximum was 66. Dirt 3, max on 1080p, average of 89.3, minimum of 67 and a maximum of 115. This never went below the V-Sync limit. That is how powerful this little machine is. These were on max settings at 1080p. Far Cry 3, maximum 1080p. This one was a little bit underwhelming, but still managed to get an average of 53.9. It did drop to 17, which was a bit unfortunate, but that might have been a loading scene, and had a maximum of 68. This truly is a nice, smooth gaming experience at the limitless card. You could drop it down by drop a couple of filters down, and you'll get a solid 60 FPS on the V-Sync limit. Metro Last Light, I managed to get very high with 4x on the filters and at 1080p. I got an average of 56.8 and a minimum of 27, just dropping underneath that 30 FPS playable bit. But still, like I said, drop it down by a couple of filters and you'll be fine. Maximum was 69, so this truly can play it. Civ 5, I know it's an old game, but I love this game and I play it to bits, and to more than me and my friends, it's a worthwhile benchmark. So I managed to max this out at 1080p again, had an average of 101.4. Minimum was 21, but that's probably because it was CPU bound more than anything, because Civ, I benchmarked on worst case scenario. It's a huge mod that is the size of the planet. And the maximum was 133. Trying to very high on everything, as max as I could get it. Average was 95.9. Average was 96 frames per second. Minimum was 68, again never going underneath that V-Sync limit, and maximum was 101 FPS. So there you go guys, that was my £430 build. I think frankly you cannot get better performance for the price. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, if you like the video, please like it. If you think there's something I could improve on, then let me know in the comments and I'll try and fix it. Thanks for watching guys. If you liked more of these videos, please subscribe, and I'll catch you later.